Alright guys, hi, I'm Bradu. I got another 28 days later video. A little bit of my progress for sketch card a day through the month of February. And today I'm just going to do an artcast style where I draw while I ramble on. So I'm working on a semi-secretive drawing here. I didn't mention it. I alluded to it in a couple of my earlier videos without going into any detail. And that's because it's going to be a present for my wife, and she saw some of those earlier shorter videos. She's not going to see this, see a longer artcast one, I don't think, so not too worried about that. I still have to figure out I'm getting all these weird shadows, as you can see. So I'm getting like shadows from, well, there's my hand right here, this one, cord and stuff from the lamp. I tried turning the lamp on, but there's no bulb in it. So I'll still have to figure that out, but for now I just figure it'll serve its purpose. So I had a pretty good day. I got my sketch card done today. Um, and this is kind of goes back to making use of my time better. I had my ups and downs already today in that sense, but I had to get an oil change, and it took longer than I thought it was going to take. They're like, it's going to take an hour. I had to take it to a special place. And I had my drawing stuff with me, and I busted out my markers in the waiting room and drew there. So I got my card done before I ever got home from work. Got home a little later. And I also got some drawing done at work too, quite a bit, not for any of my projects that are, time sensitive or whatever, but I still did get some drawing done. It was kind of funny. We had a training, a really long training, and we have stuff like that. I usually just bring my sketchbook and draw. Nobody cares, or actually they might, but nobody ever says anything. But today I got kind of called out. It was kind of funny. This guy was going around talking about classroom management techniques or whatever, and how to give positive praise to the students who are doing well. And the guy doing the training came around, and apparently when he got to me, like he was walking right by me, and he said, "Oh, great job taking notes there." And this other teacher guy who I don't really know that well, like pointed out, he goes, "Yeah, like nice notes." And I looked up and kind of chuckled at him. And then it was kind of like it drew attention for a second. He's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot." And I'm like, "Man, I'm here at the training. I'm listening, I'm participating. If I'm getting some artwork done too, that's great." You know what I mean? So I didn't feel too bad, but it was kind of funny. So anyway, I did a lot of I did like 2 or 3 got the pencils and and like the inking outline done on a couple cards during that training. So yay for multitasking. I'm working on this portrait from our wedding of my wife and I in Copic markers. I'm using Cool Grays, 5x7, I think. And this is kind of a multi-purpose piece too, because the Artcasters Facebook group always has a monthly art challenge, and this month is self-portraits, and I was like, well, I was already going to do this. So I don't see why. It's not really a challenge. I mean, I think there's a prize this month or something, but it's just like a way to get artists involved in supporting each other and whatever. That was my take on it anyway. Um, so anyway, I was like, hey, well, if I finish this up before the end of the month, I'll have something for that too. I used to do a ton of self-portraits when I was in art school, and I really haven't in a long time. And I've been meaning to, if for no other reason than to at least get one done for like my business cards and stuff, my website, you know, like the image that's me, you know. And the one I used to use on my old business card set is, you know, outdated now. And the one I did use on my latest business card set is kind of outdated, but I just don't love it. It's all right. It shows me, it's kind of like a close-up. It's a little sketch card I did of just my eye, basically. So I've been meaning to do another self-portrait. This is not the one, because this is, you know, it's not going to go on my business card or whatever. This is a gift. But anyway, I've had a pretty cool day. I think I kind of started to say that. I went to the art store today. It wasn't too far from where my oil change was. And I picked up a couple mechanical LEDs, blue and red, that Kevin Cross showed in his video yesterday or 2 days ago, where he was actually answering my question and saying, here's what I use. And I went out and got some, and I got a couple mechanical pencils. I've actually bought, let me show you. I bought blue and red to match, so that, because you know, I don't have any of that fancy tape, electrical tape, but so I bought a blue one and a red one. These just had regular lead in them, but I took out the regular lead and put in the colored lead. And then I found this little pencil baggie that I probably bought years ago at Dollar Tree or something, and I'm just stuffing all my pencil stuff in there. So I thought that'd be perfect for my little mechanical pencil drawing kit, because right now they're just sitting all over the place. This is going to be a little bit of a weird one because there's not too many darks on this, which means I'm going to have to be really careful and subtle, I guess, with my values. And I'm also going to have to find excuses to go a little darker, so I'm going to go throw a little bit darker in here in the hair. What else happened today that was cool? I was going to build up to this story. Oh, yeah, the card I did today was a baseball one. And it's weird, I've had a couple cards today that have sentimental type value for me, in a sense. So the card I did was Roberto Clemente. That was my dad's favorite baseball player, and I always knew that growing up. So I thought Roberto was pretty cool too, obviously. And when I was a kid, probably 13 or so, I ransacked my grandma's basement, which is the house that I now own and used to live in, and my dad grew up there, and my dad was living there at the time too. He had moved out. Maybe not. He might not have moved back to that house yet after my parents divorced. That'll be for another story time. But anyway, we went down, my brother and I went down in the basement and looking for old baseball cards of his, and I knew, my mom always complained about this, I knew that when the year that I was born, after I was born, my dad gave away his whole baseball card collection to, he was a teacher and a counselor at a high school. One of his students liked cards, so he gave them all away, and I always was mad about that. Man, he probably had so many cool cards, and he probably did. But what I'm getting at is we did find a little box of cards down there, probably just maybe 200 or 300 cards. There was a Hank Aaron, there was a Sandy Koufax. Those were the best ones. These were about 1959, 61, right in there. But the coolest thing we found was I found his old wallet, and in it was a 1961 Roberto Clemente card. And for being stuffed in a little kid's wallet, it was in pretty darn good shape. I don't think it has any, like, probably has minor creases, but it doesn't have any major creases or torn corners or whatever. It's not worth $1 million. But it's, of the cards that I own, it has the most sentimental value for sure. So there's that story, and I drew Roberto Clemente today. And then the coolest thing just happened to me about a half hour ago. I also collect MMA cards and hockey cards uh, with the athletes' autographs on it, right? And there's a local, or used to be local fighter, Ed Herman, and I didn't have his autograph. And somebody just put up a raffle, they call them Raz, for this really cool, hard to find, limited autograph of his. And it was like 10 people can get in. It's cost $6 for a spot. I never do these. But I was like, hey, this is a card I actually want, so I'll buy a spot for $6. I was like, I'll buy a spot for $6, and whoever else is in, if somebody else is if somebody else wins, I hope you'll consider trading it to me, because I actually do want this card. And this guy immediately, Matthew Smith, way to go, he's awesome, goes, I'll take the other 9. And don't bother like running the winner thing or whatever, just send Brad the card. It's like, oh my god, that's friggin' awesome. Now this is the guy who I just did that Ronda Rousey for last week. So I think that's his way of saying he's happy with it. So that's awesome, man. That was super cool. And then the guy running the thing, who also has bought art from me in the past, was like, oh, you don't have to pay, dude. If I knew Brad wanted it, I would have just worked something out. And he just, so somehow out of that deal, I got a free card that's really nice, that's going to go into my personal collection. So that, the way that ties in is, it's another sentimental card in a sense, because there's only a few fighters I'd really go after like a special card of. And he's one of them, because when I first got into MMA artwork, and I found out that Team Quest was right in my neighborhood, kinda. Team Quest is one of the best fight teams with Randy Couture on it, and back then we had this thriving team: Couture, Matt Lindland, Dan Henderson, though he was stationed in California, but he came to Portland. Gresham often to train with those guys, and Chael Sonnen. Anyway, I go in to basically to check out Randy Couture and meet some of these guys I've seen fight, and I think I had done some artwork of them at this point, so I kind of wanted to be able to show my artwork. And it was just like Randy Couture and Matt Lindland and Chael, I think. And then these 2 young redheaded kids. And it turned out to be, I didn't know who they were at the time, but it turned out they were Ed Herman and Chris Lieben, 2 of the, like, 2 tough dudes. They both got a ton of heart. And I saw them a couple months later at a local amateur fight show. I was like, there's those 2 tough redhead kids that I saw training that one day. And then they were off, that was kind of the start of their careers. And they both made it through the Ultimate Fighter and ultimately fought in the UFC for a long time. So now I got an awesome Ed Herman card coming. This is going to be a weird one. I'm all over the place on it because I'm yapping away, of course. But that's kind of how I work. I don't necessarily work in a specific order, like I'm working exactly, like I finish the face and work out towards it, the rest. I don't do it that way. I'm just all over the place. And I kind of go, if anything, I go by values, by whatever pen I have in my hand. I'll throw that in wherever it belongs. Obviously, I'm not even working light to dark at all on this one. I'm kind of going in with some of the dark ones first. And I'm not paying much attention to my screen, so I hope I'm not covering up my drawing too much while I'm doing this, so you guys can actually see. So I should have kept a watch on this. I thought what I would talk about today, and now I've already talked for a while, so maybe I should skip it. Nah, I'm just gonna do it. I thought what I would talk about today is just kind of my history with art, not necessarily with sketch cards, but where I started, how I ended up, ultimately how I got to where I'm doing what I'm doing. And I realize now I'm not really going to be able to cover that in half hour or an hour or however long I talk. So maybe this will be a several parter. I don't even know. I'm just going to talk. So when in high school I took a bunch of drawing classes, art classes. I wasn't great by any stretch, but I don't think I was bad. I was just a kid in the art class, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I don't think I even knew at that point that I liked drawing people better than anything else. I do remember a stage in high school where when I first discovered hockey, that I was doing like hockey with my art whenever I could. Like we did a drawing one time where it was like, we're gonna do cubism or whatever, and I drew Mario Lemieux's face with all these angular planes on it and painted it, and it was pretty terrible. But I remember doing that. And I remember one where we did these Egyptian like symbols and stuff in three different rows, or there was a big centerpiece and then rows on the edges. Like, let me show you. Why not? Might as well just sketch it up here real quick. That'd be neat. If I have a pen, I should, I really just want a regular pen. All I have is all these art pens. Oh, grab my fancy schmancy Chewbacca pen. He's missing a hand. That sucks. Lego Chewbacca pen. Anyway, so it was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. It was like this. We're supposed to draw 3 columns or whatever. Boom. With a centerpiece. So my centerpiece was this big hockey net. And I think I drew it like this. I didn't even have it figured out yet. That it was not, it's more of a rectangle. So I had this big hockey net here. Might have been a goalie in it or something, And then I drew skaters in different, in different positions here. Like one would be doing a slap shot, and it was like that. So I had little not stick figures, I'm just using stick figures. I had little skaters all over the edges. And I think a big goalie in the center. So I did a hockey piece there. I really wish I hadn't shown you that little sketch. Now you guys know how bad I am at just like starting a sketch like that. I don't really sketch that well. I have a very particular way I go about drawing that works for me. When I was really little, what I remember drawing over and over was this like army fight scene where these guys are in these little alcoves on cliffs. Let's do another sketch. Why not? And it was like this. Can you see it? It's like this. Boom. And there's water down here. And like a ship or something. And like dudes would be firing off these missiles like this. These guys were fighting with these guys. I just drew these fight scenes over and over that looked like that. That's the only thing I remember drawing as a kid, like pre-high school. So anyway, I wasn't a very artistic kid, honestly. And it wasn't, a funny story from high school that I'll tell. It's about the only, I remember a few things drawing in high school. I just told you a couple of them. This is the other one. We had this teacher, Miss Bridge. This was my freshman year. She was probably nice enough. I don't remember. I don't think I liked her, but I don't know why. Don't think she was terrible. And we were making fun of her one day, me and a couple other kids. And she had kind of a big nose, and one of the kids is like, oh my god, she has like this big nose. And I get out a little thing, and I draw her with this huge schnoz. And they're all egging me on, like, oh my god, that's so funny, cool, haha. So I do this little drawing. I was like, there she is, and I Might have even wrote her name on it or something. And this kid who kind of started the whole thing, his name's Noel, um, he grabs my drawing real quick and he runs up and he goes, "Hey, Miss Bridge, look what Brad just drew." I'm like, "You little prick." He was a little dude. But I always remembered that story. And now I think it's hilarious. But back then, I'm not going to say I hated him. I was like, I was super embarrassed. I was not a troublemaker kid. I was, did my homework, stayed quiet, all that crap. And I ran into him a few months ago at my 20-year high school reunion. So now you can figure out how old I am. And I was like, "Dude, I remember one thing from you in high school, and this was it." And I told him that story. And he's like, "Oh, man, I'm sorry." I was like, "Oh, don't worry. I'm not that mad about it anymore. Got over it a couple of years ago, you know." Um, I don't really know what I'm doing because oh my God, it's 9 o'clock. This is usually when I go to bed. I don't think I'm going to continue this too much longer, or I'll make it a two-parter. Who knows? I don't know. Anyway, I took a really long nap when I got home from after getting my oil change on my car. And man, I was just zonked, and I was aware that I was, just talking yesterday on my video about making better use of my time and not always making this excuse that I'm tired. But I came home and I just conked, turned a hockey game on the TV. It was like 5 minutes into the game, and I'm laying on the couch, and the next thing I know, there was 5 minutes left in the game. And hockey games are like 3 hours for those of you, 2.5. For those of you going, what does that mean? So I slept for, probably almost 2 hours just like that. So now I have a little more energy at least. Maybe I'll try and work a little bit on the faces here so that we get some of the cool stuff. So that's kind of how my night's gone. I'm getting most of my progress with art was done before. Earlier in the day, but here I'm drawing. So that counts for something. Oh, and last night, I'm not going to tell particulars about this, but last night I got this idea, like, where do I go from here once I finish February? What's next for me, next month or next step? And I had mentioned in earlier videos, like, am I going to do 365 days of sketch cards or 100 days of drawing or whatever? And last night I got this idea, and I think it's what I'm going to do. And I don't want to go into any sort of details because I just jotted down a couple ideas for it. But it's going to be a little experimental and pushing my boundaries. Not my boundaries, but my limits. And yet still geared towards the type of art that I do. So it's not going to be like doing, beginning art class experiments, but pushing my own limits a little bit. So I thought that might make for a really cool one. So I still don't know how long I'm going to do it, but I think I have that idea at least. So one thing about doing Copic grays on this paper, which is, I'm not sure what the best support is for markers, but I kind of like the way it works on this paper. It's just a sketch pad, drawing pad or whatever. And I doubt you can see this in the clarity of the picture. But when I first make the mark, it has a completely different gray, like a yellowish gray almost. And when I first started drawing like that, I was like, oh no, this is going to be all screwed up. But what happens is it dries the color it's supposed to. So it's really weird. It doesn't have it looks warmer, I guess. It looks more like a warm gray when I first make the mark. And it's not till it dries It's like the hair up here has the cool gray and this stuff that I drew a few minutes ago. But the marks I just made in here, they all have that warm look. So I just think it's weird. I don't know why it does that. It's just something I observed. So if you'll see, I don't have fancy techniques I use when I draw. I just block in the color. And I try and make it a little erratic enough, not erotic, erratic, come on. I try and make it erratic enough that I don't get these weird lines, and so it still has kind of an artistic look or quality to it or whatever. I can see that. I think doing this in front, trying to talk the whole time, slows me down because I'm concentrating less on what I'm doing. So even though I'm still drawing, I'm just kind of winging it more, and I'm being a little more careful about not doing anything bold, so I have to do more layers. That's all right. I'll do some. I don't think I'm going to finish this on camera. I just wanted to show some of my process. So anyway, through high school, I wasn't a great artist, but I wasn't really into it yet. And then I got to college. I went to Mount Hood Community College, and I took, the drawing courses they had there. Just basic. I think it was just a basic drawing course. And I'm going to tell you it the way that I remember it, which probably is slightly inaccurate. But the way that I remember it is this. I go into my first drawing class in college, and they start explaining what the drawing class is going to be like and how we're going to learn the basics of drawing and this and that. And then he's like, and we're going to have some live models from time to time. I'm like, huh, okay, weird. And the way that my memory tells me this story is, the next thing I know, on the first day, okay, so here's our model for the first day, and this lady just walks up and drops this robe, and she's standing there naked, and I'm supposed to draw her. And I was like, what? Like, I felt totally like Beavis and Butthead, only it wasn't like some hot broad. It was, just some lady. But I remember being so embarrassed or taken, I don't know, caught off guard or something. And maybe it was like the first day they said, and we'll do some life drawing from time to time. And then the next class, it was just like, all right, so here's our first model. I just remember it just shocking me. Like I didn't have warning. I wasn't ready for that. But here's the other thing that I remembered, and this actually goes into just a basic drawing lesson. It was awkward for about a minute or two, maybe. I was like, oh, what? And I start drawing. And once you start drawing, the right brain kicks in. Drawing on the right side of the brain, Betty Edwards. It's like the drawing Bible. If you're gonna have one drawing book, make it that one. Anyway, when you get into your right brain mode, you're in the zone. You're only paying attention to what you're drawing and what you're looking at. And so from that point on, for the rest of the day or the rest of the drawing or whatever, it wasn't really weird. I wasn't even thinking about what I was drawing. I was just trying to draw it. It was just shapes and values, and it was not awkward at all. There was one day that it was really awkward. I don't think I'm going to get into that. I was pretty sure this gal was like giving me weird smiles, and then during the 30-second gesture poses, she always seemed to be like, what do I say? Aiming herself at me or something. So I guess I am getting into it, but I'm not going to say more than that. But I was like, whoa. I mean, I feel like I moved across the room once we actually started the drawing to get like, get rid of, I don't know, Get like out of eye contact range or something. That's funny. But other than that, life drawing's not really that big of a deal. Ooh, how's this gonna go? Hang on. So in college, I did start to get more into art, I think. I think I got like, started taking interest in Salvador Dali, MC Escher, and other artists who had like, kind of, I don't know, hidden images, Bev Doolittle, things like that. Um, I started to draw more on my own. Oh, I have another funny story. Back to high school. So in high school, I did start getting into portraits. That's right. I totally was Napoleon Dynamite. Um, I would have a crush on a girl and take her tiny little yearbook picture and draw this big portrait of it, and thought they were so good. And they were good for a beginning art student, I guess. They weren't good they looked better than Napoleon's, I'll tell you that. But they weren't fantastic by any stage. So yeah, I guess in high school I did already start getting into portraits, and I knew that's what I wanted to draw. I mean, I did that like twice. It was probably twice when I drew a girl out of the yearbook. And then her mom made her go on a date with me. No, I made that up. I didn't go on dates in high school. Are you kidding me? I was a nerd. So anyway, back to college, I guess. Started drawing more, started taking a little more interest in it. And the one drawing, I just told this story and I can't remember if it was on one of my other videos. I think it was. But I did a drawing of a tiger in pastel, and I was like, this is actually not too bad. And it completely changed my confidence as an artist. I suddenly became more confident in what I was doing. And I did a series of, I mostly was doing celebrity portraits at that time. I did like Natalie Portman, Alyssa Milano, Selma Hayek. A couple of these are still on my website, and yet I did them in, how long ago was that? Late 90s, I guess. So I got a couple of really old ones, I think, still on there. And let's see. It's hard for me to kind of remember some of this. I wonder if anything's going to come to me. I guess a couple stories have come to me already, but if anything's going to come back to me as I'm telling the stories. Oh, I forgot about when I did this drawing or whatever. I was doing the usual stuff for an art student. I was using a lot of vine charcoal and gigantic sheets of paper and carrying around those big portfolio things to my art classes. And then I don't think I went big into art at Mount Hood. I was there well, I got my 2-year degree there in only 5 years. Yeah, I was there for 5 years. I don't feel like I took 5 years of drawing classes there, though. I can't really remember. And then I took a year off of school. After I graduated there, I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was working at a child care type place, preschool. And then I was like, I just had this opportunity or this wild hair to go back to school. I learned a little bit about Western Oregon, and it seemed like it was the type of school that was right up my alley, and I went there. And it was cool. I loved Western, and I made some really good friends there and had a really good time. But I went into the art program there. And of course, that's like when I really kind of took off as an artist, I guess. Started to find where my strengths were, where my niche was, and things like that. But there's not a huge art program there by any stretch. I mean, I recommend anyone to go to Western because it was a cool school. I don't recommend going there if you want a serious art career. I don't know if I recommend, that's what I said I wasn't going to do. I don't know if I recommend going to school if you want a serious art career. I think serious artists maybe didn't get there by going to school. I don't think, I guess, so what I'm saying is, I don't think having an art degree has ever helped me get a job. But I'm sure I learned some things there. But I kind of wish I went to an art school. There's a couple really, there's at least one good one in Portland, I think. And I probably would have been a lot better off in terms of what I learned there. But anyway, my first year at Western, I found a couple instructors I really liked. One of them did most of the drawing courses and printmaking courses. Her name was, I don't know, should I say names? I already said Miss Bridge. Her name was Becca. And everybody kind of hated her, and I loved her. She had kind of a dry personality. She was young-ish. She seemed to like me, I guess. But I always really liked her. And that first year, she nominated me for some kind of art excellence award. I had to give a presentation on it, and I had to frame like 3 or 4 pieces I did that year. Just like a charcoal self-portrait, and I don't even remember what else I would have had done there, and I did fine. I'm okay at like that public speaking type stuff. I had a little speech written up and had practiced it. But what I remember most about that is as I'm walking in to give my presentation, I've got my 2 or 3 framed pieces I'm carrying in there, and they're rather large. And I had pinched them together where the corner of one of the frames was against the glass on the other frame. And as I'm walking them up to the front to start my thing, the glass cracks on my framed self-portrait. And I'm like, well, all right, here's my presentation. This sucks. I just broke the glass, so not off to the best start. Bear with me. That sucked. But it was really cool to get this award in my first year. It was mostly your standard drawing course. There was like a basic drawing, and then a basic life drawing. It's probably what I took that year, and maybe the next level. They had like two or three levels of drawing, and then 2 or 3 levels of life drawing, and that's all the drawing courses they offered. And that was the biggest pitfall for me about going to school there, because I was more interested in drawing than any other form of art. I was never really interested in sculpture. I was interested in painting, but less so than drawing. I still like drawing better, and I took all the painting courses they had too. But by my 3rd year, I had taken all the drawing courses, and yet I still wanted to draw. I mean, that's what I was there for, So I had to make up my own courses. What's that called? Independent study. Yeah, so I was like, I'll get into that, but I took also the painting courses, and Sue Ellen was the painting instructor, and I really liked her. She reminds me of one of the Fraggles, and I couldn't tell you which one. The, kind of the motherly one. And she was like that. She was hard on me, and that didn't bother me. But I remember other students kind of going, man, she really gives you a hard time all the time. And I was like, oh, really? Well, yeah, she just tore apart your painting and used it as an example to the whole class of all the things you're doing. I was like, well, yeah, but no, she was showing me ways to improve it. I just always felt like she was trying to help me, and she knew that I had a tough enough skin to be able to take that kind of criticism. So I did really like her. I didn't always 100% agree with her or whatever. Oops. There were times when it seemed like she was a little too hard on me, maybe, or I don't know. She was the one I was talking about this the other day in the working hangout. She was the one who wouldn't let me do my grayscale painting with just black and white paint. She's like, you can't do that. And you can never use paint straight from the tube. And I just don't care about rules like that, man. In that sense, I'm not like an artist. I break those kind of rules. Um, and you can't paint on, what was the, oh yeah, the really cheesy Elvis paintings on black velvet. I did a painting on black velvet. She's like, why would you choose to do that? I don't know, it looks kind of cool. That was it. Um, so let's see. I went to Western for 3 years. Took all of the drawing and painting courses they had. And then I have a funny art story from a I can't remember what this class was, but I kind of liked it, but I did not like this instructor. Um, it was like a design course, I guess. So some of the projects were kind of cool, and we kept the sketchbook, which was good. I actually had a sketchbook with doodles and stuff in it, which I don't do often enough. But what I didn't like about this lady is she did not understand how to grade. I think she just didn't understand the basics of math, and that's why she was so bad at grading. So, you know how it is. Everybody's got like the grading scale anywhere, and maybe it's not like this anymore. I haven't been in school in a long time, but grading scale is like this. 90 to 100 is an A. 80 to 90 or 80 to 89 is a B. 70 to 79 is a C, so on and so forth. And then, at the high end of that, you'd be a plus. So like an 88 would be a B plus, and an 81 would be a B minus or whatever. She didn't get that or something. And so her grading scale went like this. She's like, oh, well, every grade is worth 3 points. And she said, there's no such thing as an A plus. I remember that. So in her class, 97 to 100 was an A. And then the next 3 points, so like 94 to 97 or something, was an A minus. And then like 90 to 93 was a B plus. And I was like, what? Lady, like, it's not every 3 points is a grade, but that's only because there's 3 points for a plus and 3 points for the regular and 3 points for the minus. And there's your 9 or 10 points or whatever. It's like if you're wiping out the A plus, then the A range should be twice as big. So if you want to do that, then say an A is 93 to 100 and an A minus is 90 to 92 or whatever. And she didn't understand what I was saying. I must have had a 94 in there and got a B plus or something. And I think I had a 4 point that term except for this 93 or 94. And we butted heads on that one. And all I took away from it was, man, lady, you're stupid. You don't even get it. Anyway, there's my little rant about that. I don't remember her name, and that's probably better. I don't think she was terrible. I just was really pissed that she screwed up my grade because she didn't understand math. So I had to do those type courses too, and like the technical drawing. That one I did not like. I avoid technical drawing. If you guys haven't been able to tell by what I choose to draw on my own, it's certainly not technical stuff and perspective stuff and what have you. Painting was pretty cool, but I never liked oil painting. I had an oil painting class or two. And I can't remember if there was actually an acrylic painting class or if it was just like you take a painting class and it was some oil and some acrylic and then you take the oil class, But basically whenever I had the option, I would go acrylic instead of oil. And all it was, it had nothing to do with the way the paintings turned out or anything like that, or actually working with the paints. All it was acrylics. You can just get out some paints and a paintbrush and a glass of water and a towel, and you can paint. And with oils, there was all these other things you needed, like turpentine and terpenoid, and you had to, all of the waste was like harmful to the environment, and you had to be careful. So you had to be careful about throwing stuff away, and I hated all of that stuff. It was just all the hassle, and so that's why I've never gotten into oil paints, and it's kind of silly, because I think it's better, or at least the vast majority of people seem to think it's better than acrylic. I never really did watercolor either. Just a couple tests with the watercolors you find in the little kid aisle at Fred Meyer, whatever your local store is, back to school aisle. There we go. Let's go a little bit darker with some of the darks. Oh, so where does that leave me? My senior year at Western, we got this cool painting studio that was actually across town, which means you don't know where Western is, but it was this tiny little town called Monmouth that was just a few blocks. And the next town over was so it's basically across the highway. It was a 5-minute drive. We got this new studio in this building, and that was kind of cool. So my advanced painting courses, my final year was in this cool studio that was just for us. I think there was about 8 or 10 of us that were in that class, and then that started the year, and then by the end of the year, I think there was only 2 or 3 of us. And I can't really remember why, but I remember feeling some sense of pride or something for hanging in that long. I don't know what that was about. But it was kind of cool having this studio. And we did we did an art exhibit on campus, and I would get my art in the shows in the Campbell Hall Gallery. I had a couple things in shows and stuff, which is something I've never done since then. The only gallery stuff or anything on display in a public place that I've ever done was while I was in school. I did this giant painting of my girlfriend at the time, Laurel. We dated pretty much all through college, and then a few years after too, actually. And she was a good gal, but we ultimately weren't right for each other, and it worked out for the better. Now we're both with the person we are supposed to be with. But I did this giant painting of her one term my senior year that I think it won some awards. It was on display, and I think it was the biggest piece, which was part of the reason it got so much attention. It's on my website. It's this orange and black. I painted it with big pieces of sponge in acrylic, of course. And it was like 2 feet by 3 feet. And so that term, I remember I did that painting. And then I did a blue self-portrait, which I used on my business cards and stuff after that. I called it blue self-reflection or something along those lines. And I did that one with a sponge also. And I did like how that turned out, actually. It's a little smaller, but still, way bigger than I usually do. Maybe, I don't remember what it was. Oh, I just said 2 feet by 3 feet for the Laurel. That was 4 by 6 feet. That was huge. It was really big. Oh, and I did a giant self-portrait one term too. We all had to. That was the actual assignment. Basically life-size self-portrait. Wasn't crazy about that one though. But anyway, after that term that I did that huge painting, I was like, oh man. And I chose that on my own, right? That was my, by that year, we got to choose our own projects. Like, what is your plan for this term? And that was what I came up with. I wanted to paint with a sponge, and I wanted to try this giant painting. And after I did that, I was like, God, I just spent a whole term on one painting. That's a bunch of crap. And now I gotta like make up for it. So my next term, I said, I'm gonna do 40 paintings, and they're gonna be small. They're gonna be 9 by 12, which was tiny at the time. That's small, you know. You never did anything that small in art school. There was no sketch cards. There was no 5 by 7s even. This is unheard of right here. Nobody can draw that small. What are you, crazy? You do everything on 18 by 24 sheets of paper or canvas. So I was like, I'm going small because I want to bust these out and make up for the last 2 months or 3 months or whatever where I just did one painting. So I was like, I'm going to do 40 paintings or drawings or whatever. I think this is also the same time I was doing the drawing course, independent study. And so I think I kind of combined them. I can't really remember. But I did a ton of 9 by 12 drawings and paintings. And it was all sorts of experimental stuff. I was like, I'm trying out different supports. I got like a piece of plexiglass and I painted it, I painted a magician on it, Jeff McBride. It was terrible. But I remember flipping it over when I was done and I was like, oh, the back looks actually cooler because you see, it was inaccurate then because, I didn't even know that I was painting that. But it looked cooler from the other side. And I did a painting on a carpet. And I did a painting on sandpaper. And I did painting, like finger paintings. And I made this little kind of low relief mask out of masking tape. And I can't remember if I painted over that or dripped wax over it or what. But I had this vision of how cool it was going to look. And it looked stupid. But I experimented a ton. And the stuff that came out of that was cool was, the main one was painting with crayons, melting crayons. It's some of the more original work I've done. So I ended up doing maybe 5 of those. They're all MMA related. And what I would do is light a candle, get out a box of crayons, and I'd work on like masonite or some kind of wood type support. And I would hold the crayon over I did my underdrawing more or less just like this. I would do a line drawing just to get the shapes in the right places and everything, get the eyes in the right place and the face. And I'd print up my reference I would do 6 by 8 instead of 9 by 12, so I had to kind of resize it when I was drawing it or whatever. But anyway, I would hold the crayon over the flame so that it got hot and melty. And then I would get like one quick swipe out of it of color. And I used all these wild and crazy colors. Let me bust one out real quick so I can show you while I'm talking about it. I used all these wild colors and did these, just face portraits. Got one somewhere, not too far, I hope. Now it's going to take me a half hour to find one. I got this. Here's my artwork trading card set, by the way. Muhammad Ali. And I'll get to that story maybe in this video. I don't know. What am I at? Oh my god, it's an hour. No, I'm going to stop this pretty soon. This is pretty fun though, getting into the groove. So these are some of my melted wax ones. This is my favorite, Minotauro. Melted crayon. So that's what they look like. I would just swipe these really bold colors on, and just use color as value only. So I'd use like the dark blues and purples for like the shadow down here, and white for the highlights, and everything else was kind of this medium tone, but they're very painterly. So that was kind of one of the cool things that came out of that project. But also out of that project, oh, that was my first one. The very first MMA painting I did was this Randy Couture right there. 9x12 acrylic. Again, it was an experiment because I was just using the three primary colors. So I did a whole bunch of paintings, not like that, but I did finger paintings using just primary colors. That was another one. Just my fingerprint with stamp padding. That was an idea I got from Chuck Close, who is for another video, another time talking. I think I'm actually going to wrap this up. I can see that this is going to go at least another hour of me drawing and or rambling about my history as an artist. But that project got me on the path I am still on. And this is how. When I did that first Randy Couture that I just showed you, and the reason I chose 9x12 is because I knew that shrunk down, they're close to the same proportion as a trading card. And I had this vision of my artwork as a set, as a trading card set, or as a collection of work that had unity because of its shape or whatever. So out of that 40 or whatever paintings I did that term, maybe half of them were MMA related. MMA is UFC, for Ultimate Fighting, for those of you who don't know. That was one, and still is, one of my big passions. And back then it wasn't a popular sport. It was just in its beginning stages. So we're talking 2000, 2001. 2001 was when I first did that Randy Couture. So that led into me making trading card art ultimately. And like I said, I think I'm gonna stop this and do something else. Get some. I'm almost an hour. That's long enough. That's long enough for sure. But hey, it worked out okay. I was kind of getting into the groove. Haven't even looked at what I'm drawing, but it's coming slowly. But it looks okay. It looks kind of like us. And as I get the values in there more, it'll come through even better. I'm sure she'll like it. All right, so I don't know when I'm gonna do my follow-up to this, but I'll keep talking about my history as an artist. Thanks for watching. If you're watching, I'd love to hear what you think. And rock on.